Stop whatever you're doing right now, because a phone call was made in the middle of the night that just flipped the entire West Coast power structure upside down, and almost nobody understands what it actually means. A certified Compton legend, a man who has built 2 decades of his legacy on never folding, never flinching, never backing down from anybody, just allegedly picked up the phone and surrendered, waved the white flag, tapped out. And the man on the other end of that call was not who you think it was. But here's the part that should terrify every single person following this story. The last 3 times this exact surrender was announced, it was a trap. Every single time. So tonight we are asking the question nobody else has the nerve to ask out loud. Is the game actually standing down? Or is this the calmest, coldest setup hip-hop has seen in 20 years? And that is only the first layer, because buried underneath this ceasefire is a 2-year secret text thread that ended in a public apology, a 10-minute freestyle cypher that has the entire label's roster sharpening their pens, a multi-million-dollar HBCU campus takeover backed by some of the biggest corporate names in America, and a federal courtroom war where deleted text messages, a mystery intimate video, and the words revenge porn just entered the chat. Every one of these stories connects. Every one of them leads back to the same building in Carson, California. Stay locked in, because by the end of this video, you're going to see the whole chessboard, and I promise you the final piece changes how you see everything else. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. If this is your first time here, we break down the music business, the culture, and the chaos behind the headlines. And tonight is one of those nights where the headlines are doing backflips. Before we dive in, do me one favor. Hit that like button, share this with one person who thinks they already know how this story ends, and get comfortable, because we have a lot of ground to cover and the ground is shaking. For stories, one label, one legend in retreat, allegedly, and a thread running through all of it that most channels will never connect. Because connecting it requires you to look past the drama and into the machinery underneath the drama. That's what we do here. Let's start at the top, with the call that started it all. So according to multiple reports circulating through the TDE orbit this week, the game reached out to Top Dawg and the leadership over at Dawg Entertainment to communicate that he is done. Finished. No more smoke. The word being used behind closed doors is ceasefire, and I want to be extremely careful with that word, so we are going to keep the word alleged stapled to it for this entire segment. Because if you have watched this saga unfold the way we have watched it unfold, you already know why. Allegedly, the game made it known that he did not appreciate the way people were speaking on his name. Not just the TD camp, not just the artists, the public, content creators, podcasters, the entire internet ecosystem that has spent months dissecting every move he makes. And honestly, when you step back and look at it, that's the part of this story that deserves the most scrutiny, but we'll get there. Now, the messenger who brought this news to the people was Mac Wap. And if you know anything about Mac Wap, you know this man delivers information like he's starring in an action film that only exists inside his own head. He hopped on his platform and let the world know that the higher-ups told him to shut it down. And I want you to picture this scene exactly as it happened, because the details matter. Mac Wap says he got a call late at night from his big dog, and his big dog got a call from somebody else, and the instruction that traveled down that chain was simple: stand down. Stop clowning the game on stream. Let the past be the past. Move forward. Now listen to the construction of that sentence, because it's doing a lot of heavy lifting. Mac Wap got a call from Top, because Top got a call from somebody. Who is the somebody? Nobody is saying it directly, but the assumption floating through every comment section in America right now is that the somebody was the game himself. The man allegedly picked up the phone, called the top of the pyramid, and asked for mercy. Or asked for peace. Depending on which side of the fence you stand on. Those are 2 very different words. And here's where I need everybody to lean in, because this is the moment the story splits in 2. On one side, you have the people taking this at face value. The game is exhausted. The game has been in the studio, allegedly with Drake at some point, cooking up who knows what. And maybe the man genuinely wants to redirect his energy into music instead of a war that has been running on fumes for months. That's the charitable read. On the other side, you have the historians. The people who have watched the game operate for 20+ years and know that this man has weaponized the fake ceasefire more times than we can count. He lulls you. He rocks you to sleep. He lets the timeline relax, lets the streams die down, lets everybody lower their guard, and then he strikes when the room is quietest. I am not saying that's what's happening here. I am saying that if you believe this is over because a phone call was made, you have not been paying attention to the way the game moves. This is a man who treats rap beef like a season of prestige television. There is always one more episode. There is always a twist in the finale. And let's not forget what the game himself was saying just days before this alleged white flag went up. This is the part that makes the whole thing smell strange. The game was in comment sections talking about pulling back curtains, talking about revealing that certain people are not who the public thinks they are, and the targets of that statement were widely understood to be Kendrick Lamar and the TD crew. His own security guard was out here posting the eyeball emojis, suggesting something was coming, something was about to be addressed, shots were possibly being loaded into the chamber. So which is it? You don't spend a week threatening to expose the most powerful rap label on the planet and then quietly call the boss and ask for a truce, unless one of two things is true. Either somebody made him an offer he couldn't refuse, or somebody made him a promise he couldn't ignore. Think about that. Sit with it. Because neither of those options ends with peace. Now, adding even more texture to this, Stat Quo reported on the community show that the game's real issue, his core frustration, is with the way people talk about him online. And when the conversation turned to Mac Wap and Keem specifically, Stat took a position that I found genuinely interesting. He said he would love to see them all sit down together, have an actual conversation, air it out face to face, on live, on some grown man energy, and let both sides get a better understanding of each other. He said it would be great for their podcast, great for the culture, great for everybody involved. Now, that's a beautiful sentiment. It really is. But let me ask you a question, and I want you to answer it in the comments. When was the last time you saw the game sit across from somebody he has a problem with and resolve it with dialogue? I'll wait. Because from where I'm sitting, the game's entire brand, the entire architecture of his career, is built on confrontation. The sit-down is not his love language. The diss record is. The Instagram rant is. The surprise attack is. So while I respect Stat Quo for extending the olive branch of conversation, I would not hold my breath waiting for the game to pick it up. And honestly, there's a read of this moment where the game has a legitimate grievance buried inside the noise. Parasocial pylons are real. Thousands of strangers performing outrage about your name, day after day, month after month, would wear down almost anybody. The man is human. The question was never whether the noise bothered him. The question is what a man with his instincts does about it. And history says the answer is never a quiet phone call. And here's a detail that I think slid under most people's radar. Stat Quo said something else in that conversation. He praised what Mac Wap and Keem are building, called their lane dope, said what they're doing with their platform is impressive. Now why does that matter? Because it tells you how the extended TDE family actually views this whole war. To them, this isn't a war. This is content. This is entertainment. This is something happening over there on the internet while they go about their business. And that framing, that casual, almost amused distance, is going to become very important in a few minutes when we get to the Dave Free story, because it is the exact same energy. So as of this recording, the official word is ceasefire. The unofficial word, from everyone who has studied the game's career like a textbook, is don't you dare go to sleep. Because the game has been in the studio. The game has allegedly had Drake within arm's reach of a microphone. The game has been making noise about curtains and revelations and exposing people. White flags don't usually come with loaded weapons behind them. But with this man, you check the hands, you check the sleeves, and then you check the hands again. And understand something about the man we're discussing. The game does not experience peace as an endpoint. He experiences peace as leverage. Go back through the timeline of his career, and you will find a pattern so consistent it might as well be a business model. Escalate. Dominate the conversation. Let the pressure build until the other side moves. Then pivot into whatever benefits him most in that moment. Sometimes that's an album. Sometimes it's a documentary. Sometimes it's nothing but the satisfaction of knowing the entire industry had to stop and react to him. He has been doing this since the G-Unit days. He outlasted 50 Cent's Machine. He outlasted changes in sound, changes in labels, changes in eras. You do not survive 20 years of warfare in this industry by accident, and you do not survive it by being the kind of man who calls the other side to surrender. Which is exactly why this call, if it happened the way it's being described, is either the most mature decision of his career or the most dangerous performance of it. And I keep coming back to one detail that should make everybody pause. Nobody from the game side has confirmed any of this publicly. Not him. Not his manager. Not his security. The entire ceasefire narrative is being told by the other camp. When only one side tells the story of your surrender, you have to ask who that story is really for. And one more layer nobody is saying plainly. This feud gave the game his loudest spotlight in years. Every rant moved attention. Every cryptic post trended. Men like the game do not abandon spotlights. They reposition them. We will keep our eyes on it. And the second anything moves, you know where to find the breakdown. Now let's shift gears into one of the most unintentionally hilarious stories to come out of this entire orbit. Because while the foot soldiers have been fighting a war, the generals have apparently been laughing at a comedy of errors that's been running for 2 full years. Stat Quo came out this week and issued a full public apology to Dave Free, and the story behind this apology is so absurd, so perfectly human, that I need to walk you through every single step of it. Rewind to the day of the Not Like Us video shoot. One of the biggest cultural moments in recent hip-hop history. Dave Free is directing. The whole city is pulling up. And Stat Quo, who has a real relationship with Dave Free, is contemplating sliding through to the shoot. But Stat doesn't just want to show up unannounced. He wants to tap in first. So he calls Dave. Dave doesn't pick up, which, reminder, the man is in the middle of directing the biggest video of the year. But Dave does text back. And the text says 2 words. What's up? That's it. 2 words. And Stat Quo, by his own admission, being the sensitive, proud, occasionally dramatic creative that he is, felt some type of way about those 2 words. You didn't answer my call. You hit me with a what's up? And Stat Quo made a decision in that moment that would echo for the next 2 years of his life. He never texted back. From that day forward, in Stat's mind, the relationship was broken. He couldn't get Dave on the phone. Dave had moved out of the country, and Stat went into full scorched earth mode. He told Top. He told Punch. He told the old cameraman, who idolizes Dave Free. He told anybody who would listen that Dave Free had changed, that Dave was acting Hollywood, that Dave Free thought he was too big for the people who knew him before. He literally coined the nickname Hollywood Dave and spread it through the entire camp like a virus. 2 years, 24 months of slander. Now here's where the story takes a turn into absolute cinema. Because during those same 2 years, Stat Quo had been receiving text messages from a number he didn't recognize. And instead of asking the obvious question, instead of saying, "Pardon me, who is this?" Stat just kept texting back. For 2 years. Full conversations. Jokes. Commentary on everything going viral on the internet. This mystery person told Stat he was the funniest person in the world, told him he'd be there when they inked their $500 million podcast deal, and Stat is just vibing with this unknown number like it's a pen pal from another dimension. Until a few days ago. The mystery number says something so sharp, so high level, that Stat finally pauses and asks the question he should have asked in 2024. Wait a minute. Who is this? And the answer comes back. Who did you think you were talking to? It was Dave Free. It had been Dave Free the entire time. Dave Free had been texting Stat for 2 years, calling him, watching his calls go to voicemail, getting weird short replies, while simultaneously being told by half the industry that Stat Quo was going around calling him Hollywood Dave. The confusion on both ends of that phone line must have been biblical. And to Stat Quo's credit, and I mean this sincerely, he did what most men in this industry would never do. He got on a public platform, told the whole embarrassing story on himself, word for word, and apologized. He said, "I'm wrong." He said it multiple times. He apologized to Dave Free, formerly of TD, now running things over at PG Lang. And he did it because he told Dave he would. That's integrity. That's also hilarious. Because imagine slandering a man for 2 years to every powerful person in your professional circle, and then finding out the whole thing was caused by a 2-word text message and an unsaved phone number. There is a lesson in this story, and the lesson is not subtle. Ask who you're texting. Save your contacts. And maybe, just maybe, don't build a 2-year resentment off the words "what's up." But zoom out for a second, because this story does something bigger than make us laugh. It confirms the temperature inside the TDE extended family. While the game has been treating this situation like life and death, demanding to know why Dot won't get on the phone, why he can't get a feature, why he can't get a drop, the rest of the camp has been living their lives, texting each other jokes, and watching the chaos like it's a reality show they didn't audition for. Dave Free wasn't ducking Stat Quo because of war strategy. He was just busy. Top isn't losing sleep. Punch is making music. The Empire is not trembling. The Empire is chuckling. Keep that energy in your pocket, because we're about to talk about what Punch has actually been doing while everybody else has been arguing, and it is the polar opposite of chaos. While the internet has been eating itself alive over beef, Punch, the president of TD, has been quietly building something. The collective known as a room full of mirrors just dropped a freestyle session called Creative Luxury 2. And when I say freestyle session, I need you to recalibrate your expectations, because this is not 3 rappers passing a mic in a parking lot. This is a 10-minute cypher. 10 minutes. A full roster of MCs, most of whom the mainstream has never heard of, going back to back to back over one continuous beat. And I went into it skeptical, and I came out of it converted. Let me paint the picture of what's happening on this record, because the details tell you everything about the philosophy Punch is operating with right now. The opening verse sets the tone with a declaration. He doesn't write lyrics down, he engraves them. That's a mission statement. That's a man telling you that in an era of disposable music, A 15-second viral snippet's engineered for an algorithm. This camp is carving stone. Then the verses start stacking. You get battle raps about getting hated on like Klay Thompson, wordplay flipping tourist into Taurus, astrology layered over street geography, references bouncing from Nostradamus in a Shelby to Sean Kemp banging on the set. There is a stretch in the middle of this cipher where one MC stops punchlining entirely and starts delivering what I can only describe as spoken philosophy, talking about alchemy, about breaking curses, about beauty being a short-lived tyranny, and the wild part is it doesn't kill the momentum. It elevates it. The whole room rises to meet it. And then there's the line that I had to run back twice, the one that stopped me cold. Nobody loses, most people quit. Sit with that for a moment. In a week where a legend allegedly quit a war over a phone call, here comes Punch's camp with a 10-minute meditation on endurance, on outlasting, on carrying weight until your body learns to treat it like nothing. Coincidence? Maybe. But Punch has never struck me as a man who releases anything by accident. The timing of this drop, in the middle of ceasefire season, feels like a message delivered without a single name being mentioned. While you were fighting, we were sharpening. And can we talk about the audacity of the format itself? 10 minutes. In 2026, when the average listener allegedly has the attention span of a goldfish and every executive in the business is telling artists to make songs shorter, hookier, more disposable, Punch's collective drops a 10-minute lyrical endurance test and dares you to keep up. That is not a creative decision. That is a philosophy. That is the same philosophy that turned a kid from Compton named Kendrick Lamar into the most decorated rapper of his generation. Do the work at the highest level, trust the real audience to find it, and never, ever shrink yourself to fit a trend. Every MC on that record raps like their rent depends on the next bar. There's a stretch where the wordplay jumps from Fibonacci sequences to Thoreau's woods to private jets in the span of 8 bars, and it never feels like showing off. It feels like a standard being set. And let's talk about what this means strategically, because this is the part of the story the gossip channels will completely miss. A room full of mirrors is not a vanity project. It is infrastructure. Punch is building a pipeline of hungry, technically elite MCs who owe nothing to the mainstream machine, and he's doing it while the mainstream machine is distracted by drama. Every MC on that cypher now has a 10-minute audition tape circulating on the internet with TDE's cosign attached to it. That's not a freestyle. That's a farm system. That's Kendrick Lamar's old label doing what it has always done best, developing talent in the shadows while everybody else fights over the spotlight. So if you're an artist watching this, understand the assignment. The loudest man in the room this week was The Game, allegedly waving a white flag. The quietest men in the room were stacking verses. Ask yourself which one of those positions you'd rather be in 5 years from now. Now, if the cipher showed you TD's artistic strategy, this next story shows you their business strategy, and it is arguably the biggest play of all, because TDE University is officially hitting the road in 2026, and this is not a small campus visit with a folding table and some flyers. This is a full HBCU tour with real money, real infrastructure, and real corporate muscle behind it. Here's what's on the table. TDE is partnering with Toyota and BET, powered by The Orchard, and they are bringing a mobile recording studio directly to historically black colleges and universities across the country. Let me say that again so it lands. A mobile recording studio. If you're a student with talent at one of these schools, you are not just getting a pep talk and a t-shirt. You are getting access to professional-grade recording equipment on your own campus. On top of that, there are scholarship awards being given out. There are exclusive merch giveaways. There is complimentary food at every stop, and anybody who has ever been a broke college student knows that free food is not a small thing. It's a headliner. Now look at the routing, because the routing tells you this was planned with surgical precision. Grambling State, Jackson State, Alabama State, Southern A&M, Howard, Clark Atlanta, Morgan State, Tennessee State, North Carolina A&T, plus tie-ins with the Meek Swag Challenge. That is not a random list of schools. That is a direct line into the most culturally influential black institutions in America. The same institutions that have historically produced the sound, the style, and the energy that the entire music industry eventually chases. TDE is not waiting for the next generation to find them. They are driving the studio to the next generation's front door. And I want to frame this against everything else we've discussed tonight, because the contrast is the story. On one side of the ledger, you have a 40-something-year-old rap legend allegedly calling executives to ask the internet to stop talking about him. On the other side, you have the label he was allegedly feuding with announcing scholarships, building studios on wheels, and investing directly into young black creatives at HBCUs. One of these moves is about the past. The other is about the next 20 years. And the people making decisions at streaming services, at brands, at corporate partners, they see the difference. They always see the difference. So if you're a student at any of those schools and you've got something to show the world, do not fumble this. The opportunities that feel small in the moment are usually the ones that were loading everything. Get there. Bring your best. This is the kind of door that doesn't knock twice. And notice the partner list one more time, because it's doing quiet work too. Toyota, Bet, The Orchard, which is Sony's distribution arm. These are not logos slapped on a flyer. These are corporations that perform due diligence and attach their names to TDs at the exact moment the gossip blogs say the label is drowning in chaos. Corporate America votes with its sponsorship dollars, and those dollars just said, loudly, that the smart money is not betting against Top Dawg. While one side of this Cold War is allegedly making phone calls, the other side is signing partners. Now we arrive at the final story of the night, and I saved it for last because it is the heaviest, the darkest, and frankly the one with the highest stakes for everyone involved. This is the TDE lawsuit, and there has been a major escalation. For those who need the refresher, two women, Linda Luna and Ya Altieri, filed suit against Top Dawg Entertainment, along with Anthony Tiffith Jr., Brandon Tiffith, and David Hurdle, with claims that include sexual harassment, battery, assault, negligence, breach of contract, and doxing. The defendants have denied the allegations from day one. We have not covered this case in a while, but both sides just filed an 11-page joint status report ahead of a status conference. And what is inside this filing turned a lawsuit into a street fight. Let me break this down carefully, because legal language is designed to confuse you, and you deserve to understand what's actually being said. The defendants, meaning TDE's side, are now claiming that a forensic examination of Linda Luna's electronic devices revealed that countless messages were deleted before the forensic collection took place. And they are not being vague about what those messages allegedly contained. According to the defendants, the deleted communications include affectionate declarations, invitations, expressions of unconditional support, requests to see the defendants, joking and flirtatious exchanges. In plain English, TDE's side is arguing that the deleted messages would show a relationship dynamic completely inconsistent with the harassment claims at the center of this lawsuit. That is an enormously serious accusation, because if a court concludes that evidence was intentionally destroyed, the consequences go far beyond losing an argument. And it doesn't stop there. The defendants are also raising alarms about the second plaintiff, Ya Altieri. They claim Altieri initially stated in verified discovery responses that she possessed no documents responsive to certain requests, but then, during her deposition, allegedly testified that she did possess relevant communications, along with a journal she says corroborates her allegations, and that she had already provided materials to her attorneys. If both of those things are true, that is the kind of inconsistency that makes judges lean forward in their chairs. So what is TDE's side threatening to do about it? This is where the filing gets aggressive. They are floating spoliation sanctions, and I want to walk you through the menu of what that could mean, because the escalation ladder here is severe. At the lower end, monetary sanctions, fines that could hit not just the plaintiffs, but potentially their attorneys. Then, restrictions preventing the plaintiffs from using cherry-picked screenshots or message excerpts unless they produce complete conversation threads with native data. No more curated fragments. Full context or nothing. Then, evidence sanctions, blocking the plaintiffs from building allegations on top of missing or incomplete messages. Then it gets darker. Issue sanctions, where the court could formally establish that the missing communications would have been unfavorable to the plaintiffs, would have shown affectionate, consensual, friendly interactions that contradict the claims. Then, a jury instruction telling jurors they are allowed to infer that willfully suppressed evidence was suppressed because it hurt the plaintiff's case. And at the absolute top of the ladder, the nuclear option. If a court finds intentional destruction of evidence so severe that a fair trial becomes impossible, sanctions can strike allegations, eliminate entire causes of action, or terminate claims altogether. That is the defendant's wish list. That is what writing it out looks like. But, and this is a massive but, the plaintiffs are not just playing defense. They fired back with accusations of their own, and one of them introduced a word into this case that changes its entire gravity. According to the plaintiffs, the forensic process also revealed that certain message threads produced by the defendants, presented as complete exchanges, were actually missing messages sent by the defendants. Read that again. Both sides are now accusing each other of cherry-picking. Both sides are pointing at the other and saying they're the ones hiding context. The plaintiffs say they don't know the cause or extent of the omissions, and they are demanding inspection of the defendants' own devices and accounts, plus accusing the defense of asserting privilege objections without producing the privilege log they allegedly promised. And then comes the development that made everybody in the legal watching community sit straight up. During discovery, the defendants produced an intimate video of Linda Luna, a private, intimate video that Luna says she only ever sent to one person, a former romantic partner who is not a party to this lawsuit. Which means, if her account is accurate, that video traveled. Somebody passed it along a chain until it ended up in the hands of the defendant's legal team. Luna's position is that the video has no relevance to any claim or defense in this case, and her team is now conducting discovery to find out exactly how the defendants obtained it, who provided it, whether anyone solicited it, and whether it was transmitted to anyone else. Now here is why this matters so much. Depending on what that investigation uncovers, the plaintiffs say they may ask the court for permission to amend the lawsuit and add a claim under California law for non-consensual distribution of intimate material. The phrase commonly used for that, the phrase now hovering over this entire case, is revenge porn. And if evidence were to show that anyone on the defense side actively solicited the video, the plaintiffs say they may also pursue an aiding and abetting claim on top of it. To be precise and fair, no such claim has been filed yet. This is a possibility, not a charge. But the moment the possibility enters a joint filing, the settlement math for everybody changes. And there's more. The plaintiffs are planning extensive additional discovery, depositions of all four named defendants, additional TDE representatives and employees, third-party witnesses, and TDE artists they believe hold relevant knowledge. They intend to subpoena RCA Records, Sony Music Entertainment, and a Nevada law enforcement agency concerning alleged prior similar incidents involving one of the defendants. They want to inspect and photograph locations tied to their allegations, including residences connected to Brandon Tiffith, David Hurdle, and a property identified as a TD house. They may even seek financial condition discovery on individual defendants to support a potential punitive damages request. This is not a plaintiff's team looking for a quiet exit. This is a plaintiff's team expanding the battlefield. And it's worth remembering what many of us said when this lawsuit first dropped, because the initial complaint had details that were strange from the very beginning. The descriptions of the working relationship included personal errands, house visits, staying over at residences, the kind of blurred personal-professional boundary situation that defense attorneys dream about. To be clear, blurred boundaries do not mean harassment didn't happen. Blurred boundaries are exactly where harassment often lives. But it does mean this case was always going to come down to the private communications between these people, which is exactly why both sides are now fighting so viciously over text messages. The texts are the case. Whoever controls the narrative of what those conversations really looked like, affectionate or predatory, consensual or coercive, wins. And when both sides stand accused of deleting or omitting pieces of that record, the forensic examiners become the most important people in the entire proceeding. Their reports could decide this case before any jury ever hears a single word of testimony. So where does that leave us? The defendants say they plan to file for summary judgment, trying to get some or all of the claims thrown out before a jury ever hears them. The plaintiffs have proposed private mediation, but TDE side says the gap between what the plaintiffs want and the defendant's position, which is that the claims completely lack merit, is enormous. No settlement talks. No quiet check to make it disappear. The defendants are standing on the position that this case is false, and they intend to ride it to the very end. The court has ordered both sides to complete alternative dispute resolution by December 4, 2026. And the trial, if it gets there, is scheduled for May 17, 2027. Mark that date. Because if this case ever sees a courtroom, it will be one of the most closely watched trials in modern music industry history, and every single thread we've discussed tonight, every deleted message, every device, every video, will be pulled into the light. Now step back with me and look at the whole board, because this is where everything connects. A label fighting a war on three fronts at once. A public relations war with a Compton legend who just allegedly called in a truce nobody fully trusts. A courtroom war where the words deleted evidence and revenge porn are now on the official record. And a culture war that they are winning so decisively, they're dropping 10-minute ciphers and campus tours like it's a victory lap. And on the other side of all of it, the game. A man whose entire legend was built on never backing down, now allegedly asking for peace, while simultaneously, if you believe the breadcrumbs, sitting on studio sessions and threatening to pull back curtains. Something here does not add up. Something is coming. And when it breaks, you will have already heard the full context right here. So now it's your turn, because I genuinely want to hear where you stand on this. First question, is the game's white flag real, or is it the setup for the biggest sneak attack of his career? Second, should Stat Quo have ever let a two-word text message cost him a 2-year friendship? And be honest, have you ever done something similar? Third, Does the TDE HBCU tour change how you see this label's place in the culture, or is it just smart business in the middle of a storm? And the big one, after everything in that court filing, do you think this lawsuit ever makes it to trial, or does somebody blink before May of 2027? Get in the comments and make your case, because I read them, and the best takes are getting pinned. If this is your first time on the channel, subscribe and join the family, because the next chapter of this story is already loading, and you're going to want to be here when it drops. If you've been rocking with us, you already know, we were early on this ceasefire story, we were early on the lawsuit, and we will be early on whatever comes next. Like this video if it earned it, share it with somebody who's been sleeping on the details, and keep your notifications on, because the phone call that started tonight's story is not the last phone call that's going to shake this situation. Somebody's phone is going to ring again. The only question is who's calling, and what they're going to say. I'll see you on the next one. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and stay locked in.